Hey everyone, I thought I'd make another one of these. And I was recently thinking about, what the theme for um, this channel should be. And I realized, well, actually, perhaps there's no theme, and perhaps there will never be a theme. And this is just um, going to be I'm, whatever I find interesting. And so that means this will essentially all be side quests until we figure out if there is a main quest or a main story behind all of that. And so with that, I guess today's side quest is about etymology. Not sort of trying to make it a comprehensive overview about it or why you should care about it. Though I might mention it once or twice again. But I thought I'd just explain how I became interested in it and give one example of something that I found enjoyable through it. And I tried to think about sort of when it might have begun for me, and I think it was when I got my first Kindle about like I think 16 years ago. And well, the Kindle was obviously useful in of itself. It was the first time I could carry around essentially a library of books. Um, Point to note, this was before there were iPads, so some of these advantages are sort of moot now. But it was definitely a novel experience at the time. Um, and so, yeah, but one side aspect of that was that um, it had this built-in dictionary, which really changed a lot of things for me. Obviously, there's nothing new about having a dictionary. It's just not having the friction that would have gone along with using one in sort of before Kindles were around. Now, for anyone sort of too young to remember that time, it doesn't mean anything. But yeah, I found myself looking up stuff a lot, and in especially with certain kinds of books, and one great example of the kind of thing that benefits a lot from access to looking up words is this um, is the Baroque Cycle by Neal Stephenson, which I think I read it slowly and steadily, almost over a year, I think, maybe less, but something like that. And yeah, so if you don't know what it is, the Baroque cycle is essentially this I guess you would call it historical fiction, but with lots of pseudo appearances by famous historical characters, but mostly focused on tracing things like um, the Industrial Revolution and some sort of early maybe thoughts about computing or um, the role of math or things like that. Um, and yeah, and there's travel and piracy and stuff like that. It's a great adventure book, but it's also it's chock full of ideas. And I got the impression that Neal Stephenson definitely loves a bit of wordplay. Um, and so um, where was I going with this? Yeah, so that's when I first started looking up things a lot. And as you do this, like it starts off by just looking at definitions, but then because it had the Kindle dictionary had at least sort of the basic etymology inside it, which is where does this word come from, etc. That became sort of more and more a common thing to do, where I would find myself going deeper into, okay, what is this related to? What is the what is the what are the links in the origin of this word? Because sometimes some things are simple, but then some things are like, there's some word in English that comes from French, or that French word comes from something in Latin. But what does the Latin thing describe? Well, sometimes it describes the same thing, but quite frequently describes some very different thing, a different object or practice or something like that. And so there are these sort of lost metaphors, you can put it that way. And these lost, and if you do this over and over again, then, and you put together all of these like little investigations together, they form like this repeated descent, in some sense, into these sort of lost words, because there was some meaning, and then that meaning transferred and then is present in some other form, and then the referring word that is used has sort of lost this other meaning, but that the other meaning is actually somehow, sometimes it can be, let's just say, very satisfying. And so, yeah, it's not, it became sort of more and more enjoyable as you do, because it sort of compounds and you can put things together and see these hidden patterns and so forth. And so I came to, I guess, collect sort of my personal best or coolest ones. And let's say I won't talk about number one, and number three is, let's say, I think it would have a 2 to 3 way tie. So I'll talk about number two, which is my second favorite, or coolest sort of etymology. And it's the word chemistry, which you would think is not like a very, remarkable word in of itself. It denotes something almost boring for most people. Although it's used in different contexts. You can talk about chemistry between people, but you can also talk about chemistry in science, where you're familiar with sort of this physics, chemistry, biology type approach. And from that, in that context, you can say, okay, well, where does the word come from? It's like, well, you have this, these words that, you have words that link to each other in different modes. So dentistry is what dentists do. Chemistry is what chemists do. So, okay, so chemistry comes from chemist. Okay, fine. So where does chemist come from? Well, it turns out it's like a cleaned up modern version of another word, alchemist. Now, some people would have, maybe come across this word in some different context. There's a book called The Alchemist, but if you've looked into sort of this, maybe medieval science or something like that, you will find, or this also comes about in, let's call it, quote unquote, new age like stuff. There are various connotations associated with it. But okay, so chemistry, chemist, alchemist. Where does alchemist come from? Okay, alchemist is someone who does alchemy. So the root word turns out to be alchemy. All right, that is interesting. But then you might ask, okay, where does alchemy come from? Unknown. Well, okay, not quite, because there were many. It's one of many loan words from Arabic, and if you get into sort of this Renaissance period where several books were sort of found and rewritten and retranslated, etc. There's a lot of words like alcohol, or I'm missing like a bunch of other examples, but like algorithm, things like that. A lot of words were transferred over from Arabic in that sense. So alchemy turns out to have come from alchemy, sort of this Arabic word. So already we have this chain from chemistry, chemist, alchemist, alchemy, alchemy. But then you can ask, okay, where did this Arabic word alchemy come from? And it turns out that it didn't refer to, it's not describing something. It's not describing a person, an object, a place, or something like that. But rather, alchemy is literally the art of the land of Chem, and so Chem or Chem is alchemy. And so, okay, that's this I found a bit weird. Like, okay, so what is Chem or Chem? And it turns out that was the old Arabic name for, or rather, a proper noun name that was directly incorporated into this Arabic word because it was the place name of what we today call Egypt. So quite literally, alchemy by this um, sort of by construction is the art of the land of Egypt, which is sort of very oddly satisfying. So because you 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 don't use the word chemistry thinking that it refers to the art of the land of Egypt, and yet sort of it has this interesting tracing back metaphor, um, and sort of why chem or chem is ended up being the name is sort of gets more obscure because there are multiple competing answers to that. I think the black land referring to the soil is one of them, but that part is perhaps less interesting. So anyway, this is just an example of sort of this chain of things that when you put together a bunch of things like this, then they all pop out when you read anything. And so it's interesting because the knowing sort of more and more of this etymology makes everything you read sort of appear deeper. Because if you think about what happens in reading, and maybe this is another side quest later on, it's just triggering symbol associations, right? And then you fire all of that, and then you get patterns, phrases of words, sentences, paragraphs. But when you are aware of these chains, then the chains also fire sometimes as you read things. And so it changes the perception of like whole sentences, paragraphs, whatever, in not obviously in everyday communication, not when just sort of casually talking, but in certain I guess dense books, and maybe there aren't many examples of this. Maybe this Baroque trilogy by Neal Stephenson is just one of these things that I came across, and there are a few more, and maybe we'll get into that later. But yeah, that's probably a good place to stop. I just wanted to share this cool example, or what I thought is cool, and I'll sort of mention this side interest, and we'll come back with something else like this later.